Everybody, welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I'm your host and lead beat writer, Tucker Sennett, joining you here today to discuss some NC State men's basketball stuff, if you want to call it that. So we're going to break down why this ACC SEC challenge is so important for the Wolfpack. NC State, if you're not already aware, is set to play the Auburn Tigers on Wednesday at 9:15 on the Plains in the jungle, if you know college basketball. If not, that is the Neville Arena for you at Auburn. This is a massive game for NC State to sort of help the ACC lift itself up as a conference and then also improve its own standing. So this game means a lot for NC State for a lot of reasons and also means a lot for the ACC. Um, I'm sure you're all aware that NC State had a rough trip to Maui. It was not the trip that I think Will Wade was hoping for when, they took off on that plane that Friday. Um, it was just, a lot of issues emerged from that trip. You had some defensive deficiencies come up. You had some major issues, in terms of consistency. Some scoring droughts occurred. Um, and they lost two games. They lost to Seton Hall and they lost to Texas in the fifth place game after getting a win against Boise State kind of in the middle. But it was not a successful trip by any means for NC State. So they're going to need to find a way to turn things around quick, and they have a massive opportunity to do that right out of the gate. And that's going to be against Auburn. And so when we're breaking things down here, the the sort of what you have to look at with this matchup is NC State has now fallen out of the top 25. They are now, in terms of the net rankings, which are going to change massively. So I'm not going to go too in depth here. But they're 0-1 in quad one games, with the lone quad one loss being to Seton Hall. If we're being realistic, that's going to be a quad two loss at the end of the season. Maybe a quad three if Seton Hall has as bad of a season as it was predicted to. However, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Seton Hall looked like a really adequate program. I think they will have some success in the Big East. We shall see. Um, 2-1 in those quad two games, with the loss being to Texas, 1-0 in those quad three games, 2-0 in quad four games. So NC State, in the grand scheme of things, number 40 in the net rankings. Then in terms of Ken Palm, they come in at number 30. Sorry, excuse me. Number 29. So they actually moved up. They fell to number 33. They've moved up to number 29. It's actually better than where they started the year. So all things considered, not the end of the world in terms of the metrics. Now I know, they're going to have to make some moves here in the next few weeks, and it starts with this Auburn game. In terms of the Auburn metrics, the net for Auburn is not all that much better than NC State. However, their two losses are to quad one opponents. So that sort of raises their floor a little bit and makes them a very worthy opponent for this NC State team. It'll also be an inflated win if NC State can go down there and get it done because it's on the road in an extremely hostile environment. This will be a really important game in that sense because it'll sort of prove that NC State can get it done on the road. In terms of Ken Palm's sort of projections that they do over there, they have this as a loss for NC State. The win probability is under 50%, so they chalk that up as a loss, although they have it as a 4-point loss. NC State's really going to need to improve at the or defensively if it wants to have a chance against Auburn. Auburn is, a high-powered offense, 122.4 adjusted efficiency rating according to KenPom, top 10 in the country in that stat. So this team can hang up points. This could be a serious shootout. So that's all the reasons it's important in term from a analytics standpoint, from a national outlook standpoint. NC State desperately needs to beat a team that, will be on the stage at the end of the season in terms of like a tournament team, a tournament contender. And this Auburn team is its best opportunity to this point outside of, these Texas and Seton Hall games. But again, we don't really know what's going to happen with Seton Hall in terms of their long-term tournament outlook. We don't really know what's going to happen with Boise State, the win. And of course, Texas is in that very daunting SEC, so things can change there in a hurry. Obviously, the win over VCU remains pretty solid. They didn't they didn't win the battle for Atlantis, but they kind of did what they had to do, winning, I believe, two out of their three games at that event. They're up to 45 in the Ken Palm. They lost to Vanderbilt in their second round at that event, but Vanderbilt is sort of a both a Ken Palm and a net darling at this point. They're 8-0 on the season, off to a really, really good start. So VCU actually is in good shape. That'll help the Wolfpack long term. But a win over Auburn goes a long way in sort of improving just the general outlook for this NC State team because it proves that they can go down, they can beat an SEC opponent on the road, and it would help NC State a lot if the ACC is viewed as a quality conference, and the ACC is going to need to get some wins in this ACC SEC challenge. A lot of really good matchups in this one. Um, Duke hosting Florida, the reigning national champions. I know that Florida is not off to the start that I think many people thought it would get off to. Some other marquee matchups. You got North Carolina going to Kentucky. You got an interesting Tennessee and Syracuse matchup. NC State and Auburn, also a very big one. SMU and Vanderbilt could be a big one. And then Louisville at Arkansas is massive with, Pat Kelsey going to face John Calipari, the former Kentucky head coach, his new program there in Arkansas in its second year. So, Calipari obviously has a lot of history with that Louisville program, given his experience in Kentucky. So if NC State can get a win and the ACC wins two more of those games, it raises the value of the conference and come the end of the season when they're trying to kind of pick between which conference is deemed higher than the other, that's a massive, massive boost for the ACC. Could be a massive boost for NC State in terms of the seed lines, in terms of if this team isn't sort of what I expected it to be and is more closer to the bubble than a guaranteed spot in the tournament, it could go a long way in that sense. So, yeah, in terms of reputation, lot on the line in this game on Wednesday. So NC State's going to need to come to play. There's also the issue of Darian Williams kind of not being what NC State paid for the entire time in Maui. He really struggled, didn't score more than 16 points that was his tournament high against Boise State. Kind of got stifled by the Seton Hall defense, stifled by the Texas defense. And NC State was forced to look in other directions and they stepped up when they needed to, but this is the guy that was brought in to be the focal point of this NC State team and he's going to need to really figure it out and lock in here against a tough SEC opponent that has not been the best defense. So there's an opportunity for him to prove himself on a national stage here. And if he does that, when you have a player that can kind of gain eyeballs, it can go a long way in terms of just getting attention back to your program and, lifting the ceiling nationally. It could also help NC State maybe get back in the AP poll. They got up to number 25 going to Maui as the only ranked team in the tournament. Lost two games there, obviously dropped out. Still getting a few votes in the latest iteration, but not nearly close to being in the poll, which makes sense when you have a 1 and 2 week. You're not going to get left in. So, NC State's going to have to earn its way back into that poll and they're going to have to start this December with a win, I think, because, there's three games this month, and NC that matter. Obviously, there's some other ones in there, but you got this Auburn game. You have the hosting Kansas at the Lenovo Center, and then you have the neutral site game against Ole Miss in Greensboro, which is probably still going to be like a home game for NC State. And NC State's going to have to win two out of those three games if it wants to be able to have some margin for error in the ACC league season. So it starts with this Auburn game. It really does. And that's why this game is so important. And we'll have more updates on it throughout the week. As always, if you want more content from NC State on SI, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Senate Tucker on X, that is. You can also follow the website on X at Wolfpack on SI. And of course, subscribe to the Sports Videos on SI YouTube channel for daily episodes of the NC State Insider podcast for all of your NC State news. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.